Retired Tasmanian high school teacher and keen hiker Bruce Fairfax, 66, went missing on the 2.1-kilometer Duckhole Lake track at Strathblane in southern Tasmania on October 14, 2017. His remains have never been found. He and his dog Tessa were separated from his wife Louise when she walked ahead to take photos of waterfalls. Only the dog arrived back at the meeting point at a picnic table near the lake. Fairfax was a much admired former senior teacher at the Launceston Grammar who saw himself as being a perfectly capable hiker despite Parkinson's disease. Parks Tasmania advises a trail at Duckhole Lake as a, quote, easy stroll to an idyllic lake, end quote. It is flooded with sinkholes about 106 kilometers southwest of Hobart. Louise Fairfax said she called for help about 1 p.m., quote, which gave them time for the thorough search before nightfall. I began to get worried that he'd choked on that apple doing two things at once, or that he'd fallen and bled to death, end quote. Police searched every track and road in the area, by car and foot, until 10:30 p.m. that first day. Louise added, quote, I explored off track in all the places where perhaps someone could go off to the side of the road, but to no avail, end quote. The Westpac rescue helicopter and forward heat-seeking equipment called FLIR conducted low-altitude search passes, and an extensive search was done by specialist divers in Duckhole Lake. Past students and Bruce's daughters, Kristen and Lenny Yelena, flew in to form a search crew of more than 60 people. A dog had also joined the search as well. Their efforts were all unsuccessful. Louise said, quote, I went to bed that night devastated, convinced of his death, end quote. Louise wrote of being touched by the spirit of volunteers who joined the search for her husband, which included past Launceston Grammar colleagues of his, with many having, quote, driven for 5 hours through the night, many leaving straight after work the night before to be there. People canceled work and other commitments. They went without sleep. They ripped their clothes and their bodies in the bush. One rescuer ended up in hospital. We called, we whistled, we yelled. The whole thing was done with military precision, and yet with incredible sensitivity to the girls and my feelings, end quote. Louise said her and her daughters were particularly touched by the actions of police officers at the Duckhole Lake, who would be, quote, directing operations one minute and putting his arms around me the next, end quote. The police formally suspended the search for Fairfax on October 23, 2017. Family was informed Bruce had probably died of hypothermia or a heart attack. Survival expert, instructor, and author of Outback Survival, Bob Cooper said, quote, it is easy to get lost in the bush, but that the first few hours after becoming lost were the most crucial for survival. What you think governs your action, and knowledge dispels fears. If you get emotional, and most people do, that will block off any common sense, and then the person will start making decisions that aren't based on reality, end quote. Senior Constable Chris Williams said, quote, we know he's not going to be mobile because the medication allows him to be mobile. Without it, he seizes up. We expect to find him off the track. We don't expect him to acknowledge us or try to wave us down, end quote. Williams said searchers found a banana and an apple core at the Duckhole Lake, and they had been sent off for forensic analysis. Quote, due to the nature of the wilderness down there, it's very thick, hard to penetrate. It'll be very hard going, very slow work. We're going to go all day today. We'll be back here tomorrow and after tomorrow. We'll sit down with the family, talk to them, talk to the experts about how long someone would survive in this terrain. But it's certainly not something we're going to give up at the moment, end quote. The huge search would reveal nothing. The forest canopy was just too thick for spotters in the air. The terrain simply impossible to search extensively, despite the use of quad bikes and four-wheel drive vehicles. What happened to Bruce Fairfax? Police believe he became disoriented and got lost, as he required daily medication for Parkinson's disease. Within a few days, he would have not been able to easily walk. Despite an extensive search, Bruce's body has not yet been found, and even though he may have had Parkinson's disease, he did not have dementia and was sound of mind. In a post relating to the couple's previous trek in the snow at Walls of Jerusalem National Park in Tasmania, Bruce wrote of having, quote, taken huge measures to make myself stronger as he becomes weaker, so we can both keep going, end quote. Bruce's wife, Louise, said, quote, my husband had indicated after last week's successful foray into White Wonder that he felt he was up to a weekend walk to the walls, so he acted accordingly. However, Parkinson's is a fickle disease. This week you can be fine, relatively speaking, yet next week you're distressingly downhill. This week was not a good week, and he struggled badly. The further we penetrated into the White Wilderness, the less coordinated he became. His pace slowed to a virtual halt. We have had many sad last times since his illness has taken control of him, but this is one of the worst. At least he can still do day-to-day walks in the snow, for now, end quote. I wanted to include in this video another strange and similar disappearance. The only thing that makes this case similar is, of course, the disappearance itself, but also the fact that both occurred on island nations. Bruce Dingle, 82, was last seen on Sunday, July 19, 2020, at around 5:25 p.m. In common with several disappearance cases, Bruce was hiking in a group and then left of his own accord, never to be seen again. He was frail and vulnerable, so it would seem unlikely he went too far, yet the many searches have turned up nothing. 5 months later, on Sunday, November 1st, 2020, shortly after 10 a.m., hunters found the skeletal remains of a man in an inaccessible area near Episcopi. The remains were Bruce. Bruce was a British man who went for a walk with a group of 8 to 9 people in a rural area of Cyprus on Sunday afternoon, July 19, 2020. The group had walked less than half a mile, or a few hundred meters, along a dirt road to where it crossed the tarmac road about 0.6 miles or 1 kilometer from the village of Sotira. After deciding he was unable to complete the walk with the rest of the group, Bruce was directed back via the tarmac road towards the rendezvous point where the cars were parked, a distance of about 0.4 miles or 600 meters. Though he was seen to set off in the right direction, walking with poles, he was not at the rendezvous point when the rest of the walkers returned. According to the information from the police, the disappearance occurred on the main road between the village of Kanto Sotiris. The walkers immediately alerted the authorities. Bruce was around 5'7" and of medium build. He had short light gray hair, brown eyes, and wore glasses. At the time of his disappearance, he was wearing a blue t-shirt, cut-down denim shorts, and boating shoes. The search involved members of the ADE, Limassol, and MMAD Civil Defense, ETEA volunteers, members of the British base police, and relatives. The British military forces in Cyprus also provided over 20 soldiers to assist the local police in the search, but came up with no clues. A helicopter was used to scour the area as ground teams conducted investigations. The official search and rescue effort was terminated on July 14, 2020. On Sunday, November 1, 2020, shortly after 10 a.m., hunters found the skeletal remains of a man in an inaccessible area near Episcopi in the Limassol district. According to some reports, he was found in a sitting position under a bridge. Police immediately suspected it was Bruce Dingle. A week later, DNA tests confirmed it was him.